This is Tim Selgo, author of Anchor Up, Competitive Greatness the Grand Valley Way. And if you want to maximize your potential for success, then I recommend subscribing to the Success is a Choice podcast.
Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Welcome to Success is a Choice podcast. I'm your host, Jamy Bechler, and today we have Curtis Hollomon joining us from the NCAA. Curtis is the Director of Leadership Development at the NCAA. Before joining the NCAA in 2005, he was in athletic administration at both the Division I and the Division II levels. Curtis played collegiate football at Georgia Tech. We are excited to have Curtis Hollomon joining us today. Curtis, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Jamie. I appreciate the opportunity.
We're glad to have you. Now, I just gave a little snapshot into your background with my intro. Tell us a little bit more, fill in some gaps. How did you arrive at this point in your life and your career?
You know, I'm very much built on values. I've been trained that way from my parents from growing up. So I've really kind of followed those throughout my career to be able to land in the spots I was by building relationships with people, by understanding the business, and just by working hard on a day-to-day basis. So built a relationship with David Brain, who was the initial person that hired me as Director of Athletics at Georgia Tech. I moved from there and took a chance at St. Cloud State in Minnesota, had a really great experience, an enriched experience, and learned a lot about the culture of intercollegiate athletics there, and got a lot of opportunities to do some national things within the Division II ranks, including where I am now at the NCAA. I worked with them a lot on some of the programs that I now have the chance to oversee. And then this opportunity presented itself, and, I jumped at it because, the ability to work with a large group of the membership and to impact change with coaches, student athletes, and administrators is really what I'm built for. So that's kind of the path of how I got to where I am now.
Well, this podcast is called Success is a Choice podcast. And as you look at success, how would you define or measure that word success?
I'm going to go back to interesting. I look at it a different way. I look at it as, what do I value and what's my why in terms of my purpose in life? And if I'm working to do those things on a day-to-day basis, then to me, that's what I see as success. And, my why is to enrich any experience that I'm a part of, and it's to help people grow and develop on a day-to-day basis. So in doing that, to me, every day, I've been successful at what I've done. Now, not without bumps and bruises and learning and growing, because that's all part of what we do on a day-to-day basis. But to be able to see student athletes become administrators, to be able to see administrators get head jobs, to be able to see coaches excel in their careers, that's success on a day-to-day basis for me.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more, because you belong to an organization, the NCAA, which reaches and impacts thousands upon thousands of young lives, student athletes. How do you bring your why, your purpose? When you come to work in the morning, how does that transfer into your work? And then how are you able to make an impact and influence on student athletes?
The one thing that's great about my opportunity is the interaction. Being on the campus level, as I came to the national office, I didn't think I would have as much interaction with student athletes, coaches, and administrators as I did day to day on campus. But I was surprised, and I was happy and excited to realize that everything we did touches them on a day-to-day basis. And with that, we engage, we interact, we ask questions, we ask them to survey and give us thoughts on what works, what doesn't work. So we've had the ability to really be able to impact change, because we're not doing what we want to do. We're doing what coaches have suggested, administrators, feedback student athletes have given us, and the things we've been able to create are a mirror image of what they've asked us to create on a day-to-day basis.
A few years ago, the NCAA came out with a commercial that said there are over 400,000 NCAA student athletes, and most of us will go pro in something other than sports. So as you think about that and you talk about, getting these surveys and you talk about making a difference, what are some maybe specific things that you and the NCAA have done to help develop student-athlete leadership and help them to be successful in life?
All right. Well, I'm going to go, and I'm going to stay here probably the majority of our time together, is if we have student athletes look into themselves, understand their why, understand what they value, understand the character that they say they have and how they can exhibit it on a day-to-day basis, then we feel that they're going to be able to accomplish anything that they want to accomplish, whether it's in sports or in corporate America or in academia while they're in school. The member institutions focus on that academic part and making sure that they're knowledgeable and have all the certifications to get those degrees. But our job is really a unique piece of helping them really understand who they are, how they're living their lives, and then making sure that those values that they say they have, they're exhibiting, and that they use them on a day-to-day basis, and not just use them just talking to people, but use them as a guide for what they do, for how they interview, for how they talk with people, for how they express themselves. So making sure that some of those intangible parts of what they do, they have identified, pulled them out, and are using them on a day-to-day basis.
Now, you were an athlete, a student athlete at the ACC at the Division I level when you were a football player at Georgia Tech, and you guys won an ACC championship while you were there. Talk about your experiences as a Division I athlete and kind of the joys of being successful on the field of competition, but also being at an institution where you could get a good degree and where you could get a good education and get experiences off the field.
Well, I'm gonna tell you the full story, because we were 1-10 my redshirt freshman year, and then we were 10-2 my senior year and finished 9th in the nation. So, with that, and why I say that is because we experienced growing and building something, which was great. So we saw ourselves 6-5. We saw ourselves 7-5, and then we saw ourselves 10-2, and we saw ourselves 5-6. So that experience was, it was the best experience a young adult could have, because you were at a great institution that prepared you for life after athletics. And you went through growing a program and building a program as a student athlete, so you could see how something could grow through hard work on a day-to-day basis. And for the outcome my senior year to be 10-2 and 9th in the nation, it was all that any recruiter could build it up to be from an athletic side and an academic side. And then academically, man, we had some great professors. I was in the history, technology, and society department, and they drove us a lot. They made us think in theory-wise. They really did some good things for us to be ready for life and for us to be able to examine life on a day-to-day basis as we grew as young adults.
Now, we have a lot of educators, either coaches or their administrators or their teachers that listen to this podcast. What advice would you have for them to help them develop the student athletes around them, because they can make a huge impact on those people and come into contact daily with student athletes?
I would tell anybody, and everybody is doing it that I've engaged and interacted with at our member institutions and in higher ed is, care about these kids. You got to care about these kids. You got to love them up, and they got to know that, because that's when they'll really work for you. They'll really pull more out of themselves than they already have pulled out of themselves. You got to love these kids up, and that means you got to get to know them. You got to engage them. They can't be a number in a 200-kid class, in a 50-kid class. I think that's just highly important. And I go back to Georgia Tech, and I go back to that history, technology, and society department. And if I was in a 200-person class, if I was in a 10-person class, those professors invested in us. They knew who we were. They challenged us. They asked people questions. And I would recommend that to anybody out there that's educating young adults and educating children on a day-to-day basis.
What would you say to parents that are listening to this about, I'm not telling you exactly how to raise your kid, but these are some things that you might want to think about when you're trying to raise and develop a student athlete, because it seems like everybody wants their kid to be a pro athlete or wants their kid to get this big Division I scholarship, and there's a lot of helicopter parenting. There's a lot of people living vicariously through their kid. Would you have some advice for any parents out there?
Each kid is different, and each experience of a family is different. So I would not give any recommendations to parents, but what I would do is my parents loved me up. My parents challenged me on a day-to-day basis. My parents pulled me out of things when I wasn't doing well in school, and sometimes not bad, but not in the manner that they wanted me to be. And the other piece, the really important piece, is for parents to be as informed as possible about the eligibility center processes at the national office for the kids that are going to play in Division I and Division II, to make sure that they're meeting all of those minimums. So, love your kid up, be informed, and try and be as educated as possible, and challenge them as parents challenge them on a day-to-day basis, because that's the foundation that got me to where I am today, is my parents challenging me every day to be a better person, to work hard, and to really impact society at a high level and not just think about ourselves.
Could you talk a little bit about your recruiting process when you were coming out of high school and how you chose to go to Georgia Tech, and in the decision-making process of why you would choose to go where you did?
The process was, to me, it was an unknown, because it only happens once. So it was a lot of communication with my parents. It was a lot of interaction and talking to coaches. It was my parents challenging me to understand these schools and why I might want to take a visit, and why, when I take a visit, what I'm looking for and how I'm doing it. And then it was fun. The visits were really fun to understand the culture of New Orleans when I went to Tulane, to really see Rutgers and New Jersey differently, being a New York guy and not having been to Jersey that much, and then understanding the South when I went to Georgia Tech. But at the end of the day, we looked at where could you get the best education? Where could I enjoy myself from a social standpoint? And then what did I want to do coming out of college where that institution could help impact me? At no point throughout the process did we make the decision based on this is the best athletic school and this school is going to give me the best opportunity to play in the pros potentially. That was never part of a conversation that me and my parents had throughout the process. We really looked at the things out in the future to where I am now, as opposed to what it could do for me short term.
Which is a great point, because we see it almost daily. A player gets hurt, or a player doesn't like their coach, or it's not the right situation. And, and even as we said with that commercial that the NCAA ran years ago, the majority of people are going to turn pro in something other than sports. So I think that's a great perspective to remember. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis to ensure that you're continuing to grow and develop as a leader? Are there podcasts that you listen to? Are there books you read, people you surround yourself with, conferences that you go to?
It's everything that you just named. I try to do on a day-to-day basis. I have a group of mentors, some within the national office, some outside of the national office, some that are in the membership and some that are not in the membership right now. I'm reading as many books as possible when I get the chance. I'm a dad now, and I have two young kids, 2.5 and 5 months, so I spend a lot more time now with them. Harvard Business Review. I definitely read all of the articles that I can within intercollegiate athletics, so you can understand and nourish your body and see what's going on and how the membership is being impacted and how I can help them better. I've gone to a couple of Marcus Evans programs to try and understand what, chief learning officers and HR folks and marketing folks are doing from a corporate standpoint. I've gone to Darton School of Business programs at the University of Virginia to try and understand better. I try to educate and inform myself every day in some shape, form, or fashion for at least 20 minutes, because it's important. If I'm trying to grow people, I have to continue to challenge and grow myself. So any way that I can learn, I try to learn.
We'll return to our conversation with Curtis Hollomon shortly. Curtis and the NCAA do a lot to help develop student athletes to turn pro in the game of life. In the same way, I wanted to mention a resource that might help develop that student in your life. The Leadership Playbook is packed full of practical insights and stories. Frederick Douglass once said that it is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. Well, this book can help student athletes learn how to be better leaders and positive teammates. You see, when we help develop today's students, we can also help influence the future. Visit theleadershipplaybook.com to learn more about this impactful book. And now back to more insights from Curtis. What is a purchase of $100 that you've had in your lifetime that had a profound impact on your life?
Ooh, a purchase of $100 that had a profound impact on my life.
It's a tough one. I told you I wouldn't ask you any tough ones, but I guess I lied. That's a tough one.
No, I like that. The biggest impact for me on my life has truly been my two daughters. So as I look at the dollars that I spend on them, and I look at the ways that we're trying to inform and educate and make sure that they're ahead of the curve and never behind it, we've often bought sets of books and also sets of educational toys that have engaged and impacted them. And my daughter right now really is doing a fabulous job at 2.5, and we're seeing our 5-month-old really grow on a day-to-day basis. So we're excited about that. So probably the $100 that we spent on them, because it's also helped us see the impact and for us to know that we're challenging them in the right way, for them to grow and to be, impactful members of society as young adults, as youth, and as adults as they grow.
No, that's a good answer, and it just goes to show that, you can make an impact. Small things can make a large impact, and so, that's one of the reasons we asked that question. You don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to make an impact, so I like that answer. If you could meet anybody that you don't already know, I assume that you've met a number of people through your lifetime that were interesting folk. If you could meet somebody or get to know someone you don't already know, who would that be?
I would probably say the former president, Barack Obama. Just the things that he's done for the country, the way he's engaged, the things that he's done that have worked, the things that he's done that has not worked. Now, cut the politics out. Just the position that he's held and the things that he's done and the way he's impacted our society. I would love to just sit down with him for 20 minutes and just soak in the knowledge and soak in the strategic planning, to soak in who helped grow him, to soak in all of those type of things that he's been through, some of his good and bad as he came up throughout his career. It would be great. And as a minority male, I mean, you can't have a greater role model than the President of the United States who looks like you. And that's really important for me as a minority male, to see people who are excelling and doing things that look like me, so that I know I can do certain things.
Well, I like that answer. And President Obama, if you're listening, go ahead and dial up Curtis. He'd love to take you. He'd love to pay for a round of golf for you. Do you golf?
Hey, no, I don't, but I ride in carts all the time and hang out with guys golfing, so I'd be a great golfing buddy.
You would definitely drive President Obama around on the golf course if he needed you to do that.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. Is there a reality show? I don't even know if you watch reality shows, but if you were to be on a reality show, what one would it be?
First and foremost, I would never go on a reality show as a dad of two. That's just not happening. But I think the reality show that I'm watching right now is Are You the One? And it's a house full of, I think, 11 males, 11 females, and they have to match. They already have a match with each other, but they don't know it's a match. So they have to figure out who's the best person for them. And it's not always about looks, and it's not always about where you're from. It's not always about being the same ethnicity, all those different things. So it's my guilty pleasure at about 9:30 at night after I put the kids down and I'm watching TiVo, and I watch it. And it's interesting because it has a little bit of science mixed in it as to how the computer has come to this person being your perfect match.
So you're saying you wouldn't want cameras to follow you around as a reality show at your household and you parenting your kids?
Let me tell you what, Jamie. I have no footprint except for LinkedIn. I have never had a Facebook page, an Instagram page, a Snapchat, you name it. I've never done it. I really do believe in having your own personal space, being able to spend time with your family and really digging in. And I mean, the first hour that we're at home with our kids, there's no TV, there's no radio, there's no phones. And a lot of times it ends up being an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. Me and my wife ride in the car, me and my wife ride in silence and talk to one another. With all the things that you do on a day-to-day basis at work, with all the people that you serve, with all the interactions that you have to have a bit of normalcy for the way you see it in life. And for us to be able to spend that time with our kids, just one-on-one reading to our daughter reading to us, just hugging and loving up on our youngest daughter, and for me and her to be able to just talk to each other about things, it's really important. And we don't spend our time, doing some of those other things that is entertaining for other folks. It's just not entertaining for us.
Well, you have a lot more time on your hands than doing that, and a lot less stress probably in your life, not being connected on social media.
Yes, definitely.
Well, speaking of social media, would you, every kid in America is on social media, it seems like. Would you have any advice for student athletes, NCAA student athletes that are on social media?
Oh, no, we do social media pieces within our programs, and we tell anybody the social media pieces, just think about what you say and when you say it. I heard something the other day that said, kind of think slow today. That's what the person said on TV, think slow. And I believe that everybody should do that when engaged with social media, because it's a footprint that doesn't leave you and can never go away. So just think about it before you post it. Think about it before you say it and hit send, and understand, the damage that it can do, but also understand the way you're representing yourself and the highlights that you can do about what you're doing from a service standpoint, the information you can get out about different initiatives that are going on to help people in the community. Social media is a great tool to do some of those things. So I would never tell people don't do it. I would just tell people to think about it and utilize it for ways that are positive and productive on a day-to-day basis.
That's a great point. It can serve as a very positive tool. And yeah, excellent point. You have a great job at the NCAA. You're involved with athletes. You're involved with sports still. But if you weren't doing this, what would be a job that you would love to do?
I'm gonna have to push back on you, man, and tell you this is the only job for me, because it's not a job. The one thing I love many things about Dave Brain, the guy that got me into this business, and coaches. The thing I really loved about him is he used to say this to me while I walked the halls as a student athlete at Georgia Tech. He'd say, I've never worked a day in my life. And with what I do right now, I do not work, man. This is in the fiber of who I am as a person on a day-to-day basis. I am built to serve people, to help them grow, to be creative, to find answers, to make sure that people are getting the most out of themselves that they can. So there is no other job for me, man. So I wouldn't be able to say I'd be doing something else, because when I sold air filtration systems, when I substitute taught, I love the interaction with people, but I just didn't feel like I was impacting at a high level the way I am now. And I felt like I was working every day. I don't work. I love what I do. I love my team. I love the people I work with. I love engaging the membership. So I'm sorry, man, but I can't give you an answer to that one.
Well, for everybody listening right now, you can't see it, but Curtis just did a mic drop on that one. He just said the perfect answer, I guess. But yeah, absolutely. You get a job that you love, and you never have to work a day in your life. Well said. What would be a quote, one of your favorite quotes that you have that maybe you haven't already shared with us, or some parting bit of wisdom for our audience?
Ooh, I am actually. It was a unique quote that I had sent to my to my coach, just letting him know, and it basically says, "Remember, we are our own griefs, my dear. We are our own happiness, and we are our own remedies." It's a great quote. I'll read it again. Remember, we are our own griefs, my dear. We are our own happiness, and we are our own remedies. And I love that quote because what it says is you impact, you engage, you grow, and you do all those things within yourself. And you need to keep and continually challenge yourself because any decision you make, you made it. Any interaction you make, you chose to have it. Any bad decision you make, you made the bad decision. Nobody forced you to do any of it. So I love that quote because I am my own responsibility, and I need to be aware of that on a day-to-day basis.
I like that. Personal responsibility. Love it. Well, Curtis, I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and thanks so much for joining us and dropping some insights with us today. I appreciate that.
Hey, Jimmy, thanks for having me. And anytime I can be out here, I love to do it, man, and love to make sure that people know what the NCAA is doing and how we're trying to grow people on a day-to-day basis and how we do it through a department that's set up to do this on a day-to-day basis. So thanks for having me.
We appreciate Curtis Hollomon taking time away from his busy schedule at the NCAA to visit with us today on the show. I hope that you enjoyed listening to him. They're doing some great things at the NCAA. Remember that you can get a free audiobook download and 30-day trial membership by visiting audibletrial.com/success-is-a-choice. Also, if you haven't done so already, please take just a quick second, hit that little subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. Thanks so much, and until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?